Hey guys, for today's video we're going to do something a little different. I want to do a Halloween special, and originally I had something planned that was more computer based, but that didn't pan out. So for our Halloween episode this year, I'm just going to take a look at my favorite horror slasher series on Laserdisc. This collection, these movies some of them are a little hard to find and a little pricey on Laserdisc, so this actually took me a while to find all these at decent prices. So we're going to go over these movies today. We're not going to really do reviews. I'm just going to give you, my thoughts on each of these movies and look at them on Laserdisc, one of my favorite formats. And yeah, I mean, hey, Laserdisc isn't my theme song after all.
Computers, Laserdiscs, and some CDs.
So, if you're interested in that kind of thing, stick around. This shouldn't be too long of a video, and we're going to look at Friday the 13th series on Laserdisc.
We got 20-minute videos on old technology, computers, Laserdiscs, and some CDs. We got two little dogs licking their balls on the screen, and now it's time for the show.
Alright, so Friday the 13th, it's one of my favorite series, and when I really got serious into collecting Laserdiscs, one of my first goals was I really wanted the Friday the 13th series on Laserdisc, at least the ones that came out on Laserdisc, which is quite a few. Unfortunately, they're kind of hard to find. Some of them are pretty sought after and hard to find. Horror movies in general on Laserdisc can be a little pricey and hard to find. Now, I do have these movies on Blu-ray and even DVD, and technically they're superior, especially the Blu-ray. A lot more features, you get them in widescreen, but I don't know. I mean, you don't really have to justify liking something. It's like, why buy an old car when you can get a modern car that technically is better? I just really like Laserdiscs. It's just more of an event, putting them in and playing them. You could say there is some advantages. A lot of people argue sound. Some people just like the look of them. One thing, though, that these things really have over, at least that I know of the Blu-rays and the DVDs, is just like the cover art. Because they use sort of, the original VHS cover art. And that was back in the day when cover art was a thing that, to draw you in, to get the movie. Today they just, cover art's horrible. It's usually, just the hero or the person just on the cover, like photoshopped on it. Blu-rays have gotten better with that. I still mostly prefer like the covers on VHS and Laserdiscs, but Blu-rays have gotten a lot better than DVDs with the covers. But just like look at an example. I know this is sort of a double feature one, but look at that cover art. It's horrible. It's just, and look, this is Jason Takes Manhattan, and I don't know if there's any DVD releases that use the original cover art, but look, it's so much better. It's just the cover art on these is horrible, and this, again, the collection is just, it's just such bad cover art. So yeah, that's one thing I really like about the Laserdiscs. Other than, for me, just being a little more nostalgic, the standard definition, it's a little more nostalgic, where sometimes less is more. So sometimes not seeing every little detail in these old horror movies, I don't know. But I was trying to think of how to do this, and originally I was going to go through it by like ranking, which I think are the best, or my favorite Friday the 13th movies. But I found it really kind of hard to do. So I'm just going to go through them in chronological order. We're not going to do a review. I'm just going to say, my personal feelings on these. Most of these I've seen within the last year recently, but I don't remember like every detail of all of these movies, but just kind of like my impression and if I liked this movie in the series or not, and maybe why. So, usually in the past when I do these Laserdisc reviews, I would throw up trailers or like scenes from the movies and stuff, but it's been kind of hit or miss whether I get copyright strikes for that. I did one video and I put trailers all through it and I got no copyright strikes. And then I did the last one and I got like 5 copyright strikes. And I mean, it's not a big deal. I don't care. This is my hobby. So if someone claims a video and I lose the whole 10 cents it makes for me a year, I don't really care. But I don't know. Getting copyright strikes is kind of icky, I feel like. It just makes me feel kind of weird. So I'm just going to show you the movies, and so this might be a little bit of a boring video for a lot of you guys. So, yeah, let's begin. Let's take a look at these movies. Parts 1 through 9 came out on Laserdisc, so let's take a look and see how I feel about these movies. Alright, well, let's start out with, obviously, the first one here. This is the original Friday the 13th. Kind of iconic cover art there with the silhouette and the knife. Now, spoiler alert, there's going to be some spoiler alerts as I talk about some of these movies briefly. Jason isn't in this one technically. He's in it at the end when he jumps out, that kind of famous scene where the child Jason jumps out onto the raft that may or may not have been a dream. So the killer in this is Pamela, his mother. So this is where something like the famous sound cues from the movie, the whole kind of thing, which I know isn't pronounced that way. It's like ma 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 something. But anyways, yeah. And so my opinion on this movie is, I like it, but it's actually one of my least favorite of the series. When I was a kid, I was terrified of Jason. And the Jason I was terrified was really the later zombie Jason. This movie, just not having Jason in it, it doesn't have quite as much of an impact personally for me. I still think it's a great movie, historically significant to the slasher genre, but it's definitely not my favorite. It might be on the bottom of the list. It's definitely not my least favorite, but it's close. But I still like it. I still enjoy this movie. I still like watching it. It's just at the bottom of my list of favorites. Decent cover art, though. Not my favorite cover art either, but it's a good movie, just not my personal favorite. Now, second one's part 2. I'm not crazy about this cover art, too. It's going with the whole silhouette again. This was actually my first Laserdisc in the series. I picked up something like $5 on OfferUp, and this is what kind of started me being like, oh, I gotta get these movies on Laserdisc. I would like to find this one in a little bit better condition. Like I said, I got this off a guy on OfferUp, and it was in a lot, and it worked out to, like I said, it was like $5 a piece, and it was like 4 movies. I think I paid like $20. This one has a little bit of rot on it, and it's not in the best condition. It's passable. It's definitely watchable, but I would love to get a better copy of part 2 if I ever just randomly kind of came across one for a good price. But part 2, this is, where we start with Jason is the killer in this one. And this is, he's known as Sackhead Jason in this one because he doesn't get the iconic hockey mask yet. He just has the sack over his head right there. So, Sackhead Jason. He kind of can run. He kind of looks like a weird killer hillbilly. In this one, he's got like long, scraggly hair, and he wears like blue overalls, and like I said, he has that sack on his head. The character isn't quite as we know him today, but I still enjoy this one. It's a little bit different. Jason's a little bit different in it. Other than that, it hits most of the other cues. I like it. Not a fan of this cover art, but I still really like this movie. This is where also we get, this Jason's mother sweater, kind of like tricking him. So yeah, there's that. Alright, so moving on, we have part 3, and this is where Jason finally gets his iconic hockey mask. Again, they're still going with this sort of silhouette theme for the covers. Not a bad cover, stabbing through the shower curtains with the blood-dripping machete. It's pretty cool. This is a good movie. I didn't appreciate the earlier Friday the 13th at first, because like I said, as a kid, it was the later zombie Jason that scared the hell out of me. And I'm not going to get into the debate, but fans of the movie, there is kind of a debate on, like, if Jason was always undead the whole time. I don't want to debate that, but I don't think so. I don't think it was ever intended to that. I think he was just like kind of a mutant or like a weirdly strong hillbilly type thing in the first movies, because he did, like, he would react different to pain, and I just think the earlier Jason, he was basically, spoiler alert again, killed by a little kid with a machete. I think in early Jason, part 1 through 4, if you put a shotgun to his head and pulled the trigger, it would kill him, until something happened that would resurrect him. But I think the early Jason and his powers and abilities is kind of like a different bag altogether there. But I don't really want to super get into that debate. But yeah, this is the one where he gets his hockey mask. There's some really cool scenes and characters in this. There's the one, like, weird, oh, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. Oh yeah, Shelby. I think his name was Shelby. He was kind of like the jokester one, guy that was always pulling tricks. He gets killed in this one. There's just the one with the scene with the guy doing handstands, and he gets, like, slashed in half by Jason. The spear gun, where I seen another reviewer talk about that scene, and I thought it was hilarious, like how Jason spears the girl with the spear gun, and he just kind of like nonchalantly walks off. It's like, I don't know, it's really kind of funny when you think about it, which also brings up a good point with these slasher villains like Jason. Like, what is their criteria for using, like, projectile weapons? Like, they don't have a problem with throwing things. They don't have a problem with using projectile weapons that shoot, like, sharp objects, like a spear gun, or like a nail gun. I could see Jason using a nail gun. The same goes for, like, Michael Myers and stuff. But for some reason, if it involves gunpowder, like, they won't use it. So, like, would a 50 caliber count? Because, I mean, that bullet's pretty big. It's almost like shooting a steak. But no, I guess, you know, if it has gunpowder in it, can't use it. Crossbows, probably bow and arrows. If you're coordinated enough of a slasher villain, those are okay. But firearms, use the gunpowder, it's a no-go. I just thought that was funny. But yeah, part 3, I like it. Decent addition to the series. So, moving on now to part 4. This very iconic cover. You may recognize it. I think this is where the inspiration for the NES game got kind of the cover art there. This is actually my second copy. The first one I bought had, like, horrible rot. Some of the worst rot I've ever seen on a Laserdisc. Completely unwatchable. I kept it. I might frame that one because I really like this cover art here. Pretty cool with the mask, and it has the wound that he got at the end of part 3 with the axe in the head. Let's see if we can look on the back here. This also introduces a young Corey Feldman as Tommy Jarvis, kind of the hero for the next 3 movies. He's actually the guy responsible for bringing Jason back to life. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't even have had Zombie Jason. It would have ended there. So I guess you can argue that he's really not the hero. It's kind of his fault that a lot of these things happen. But in this movie, he's the hero, and he's the one that actually finally kills at least the original incarnation of Jason, the living Jason, I suppose you could say. But yeah, I like this movie too. Good movie. I think it's cool that this one takes place like the day after part 3. Yeah, and they finally get rid of that whole silhouette cover thing. But yeah, Corey Feldman's pretty cool in this movie as Tommy Jarvis, kid like obsessed with masks and stuff. I think it also features a TRS-80 Model 2 or something in that movie. I remember there's a classic computer in that movie. I think he's playing Zaxxon at some point too. So, yeah, cool movie. This is really kind of a quintessential Friday the 13th movie. A lot of classic Jason, classic kills. Again, I do enjoy this one. All right, so moving on to one that a lot of people don't like. They are not fans of this one, and that's because Jason, it's an imposter Jason. And, you know, the cover actually kind of hints at that. It's a completely different hockey mask. This mask does not appear in the movie. The Jason in this movie uses his traditional mask, except the chevrons are blue instead of red. But it's still, even though this kind of misrepresents it in a way, it kind of doesn't, because it's a new beginning, a new Jason. I think they originally intended for Tommy to go crazy and become the new Jason. But it ended up being this guy called Roy, who was a paramedic. Guess now he's a paramedic, like moonlighting as a slasher villain. But let me see here. Yeah, there's good old Roy. I like this movie. It's just like a traditional Friday the 13th movie. It's just, yeah, okay, it's not Jason, it's Roy, but he acts just like Jason. And it's funny too, because he's supposed to be like a normal guy, yet he has like super strength. And he does the same thing, like, these people are running out of house, and, like, how did he appear, like, in front of them, like, he busts through a solid wood door, just, like, walks through it. He takes, like, an extraordinary amount of damage. He gets hit in the chest with, like, some kind of tractor thing, and it, like, cuts his stomach. Like, a normal person would be out at that point, so it's like, Roy is interesting because he is very Jason. Like the kills, there are good kills in this movie. I think this is the one with the hedge clipper kill. Yeah, this is the one with the hedge clipper kill. I like this one. This might be up there, one of my favorites, even though it's not Jason. I don't really quite understand the hate that this movie gets just because it's not Jason. But I like this one. Give it a chance. Give A New Beginning a chance. It really is a good kind of traditional Friday the 13th movie. So let's move on to the movies that really were iconic to me and scared the hell out of me as a kid. And that's moving into the zombie Jason era. And man, these covers used to scare the hell out of me when I was a kid. And I'd go to like the video rental stores. And I'd get brave sometime and I'd go into the horror section and like peek at the covers. And these ones, oh, they scared the hell out of me, especially this one. Just, I don't know why, just the tombstone and the mask, and like, I was too afraid. Like, sometimes I'd get real brave and I'd peek on the back of the VHS tapes. I never went to a rental store that had Laserdisc back in the day, but yeah, these scared the hell out of me. I never knew what Jason looked like under the mask because I never watched any of the movies at that point. I was just really scared, so it was all like secondhand knowledge, and I got all kind of weird stories. Like, I think people would just make up stuff. Like, my friends that didn't even see the movies would make up stuff like, oh yeah, here's the backstory. Jason was playing hockey. He was a hockey player, and he fell through the ice, and that's how he died, and he came back, and he got revenge on the Cub Scouts. I got the weirdest stories about this series, but I don't want to go too far off track. So, Part 6, another great movie. Tommy Jarvis is in it again. He's in this one too. This takes place in a mental institution, and, well, he's not even on the back. Huh. But, of course, it's not Corey Feldman. It's like a later, older Tommy Jarvis, and he's in a mental institution. And in this one, the beginning of this one, he escaped the mental institution, and he wants to make sure Jason's dead. So he goes to his grave to dig him up to make sure he's dead, and he inadvertently brings him back to life. Really cool intro scene of this movie in the graveyard. And let me see here. Yeah, so this is where we get, zombie Jason. There's a song on this from Alice Cooper, like Man Behind the Mask. It's just, this is a really cool movie. This is where you see Jason, where he's the zombie, and he's able to take a lot of damage. He can take bullets to the head and barely flinch, and he becomes a lot more like kind of like evil and unstoppable. That I think that always freaked me out as a kid, this unstoppable tank of a serial killer that you just couldn't stop. And this is where that kind of started, and it really freaked me out as a kid. But I really like this movie. Just some cool scenes with Jason going back to Crystal Lake, and the RV scene and stuff. It's just really like this movie. Cool movie. This might be one of my favorites. Alright, so moving on to the Kane Hodder area. He's kind of the most well-known Jason. Cool guy, met him before. He's played Jason most times. I think he's been in 4 or 5 of the Friday the 13th movies as Jason. So this is A New Blood. This is another movie that on Laserdisc, this is one of the harder ones. This and Part 8, I think, are probably the hardest ones to get your hands on. You're going to have to pay a premium. You can wait around on eBay for one to pop up, or like a fan club or something. And I hope one comes up for not too much, like I did with this one. I didn't pay too much. This may be the most, of all the Friday the 13th on Laserdisc, I might have paid the most for this one. Again, a lot of fans don't care for this one that much. I love this one. And the premise of this is basically Jason fights a psychic girl. I think that originally this was maybe intended to be the Freddy versus Jason that we eventually got. That didn't work out, so they changed the person that he combats or fights to a psychic girl. And just the end, it's so cool when like she's battling Jason. She's using her telepathic powers to drop houses on it. Not houses, but like roofs on him, and gasoline, and shoot nails at him with her psychic powers, and like strangling and stuff. It's really cool. A lot of your iconic hair. You got the snobby rich girl. You got kind of like a nerdy girl. You got a stoner. It's very typical. Then you've got this psychic girl. It's just really cool. Cool kills, cool weapons. Jason uses he's kind of known for using a lot of different weapons, a different weapon to kill someone in every scene. This is a good example of that. I loved it's not a weed whacker, but it's like some kind of weird hedge trimmer without the guard on it, so it's just a big buzzsaw blade on the end. This movie was edited a lot for censorship, unfortunately. Also, this is the one with the famous sleeping bag scene where Jason picks up the girl in the sleeping bag and slams her against the tree. Really cool, iconic scene. This also features my favorite iteration of Jason. He's just very zombie-like in this movie. He's got the spinal cord sticking out of the back. Very, like, hulking and ominous. He's very decayed. He has the chain around his neck from the end of part 6. I love this. This might be my favorite in the series. Yeah, I think this one's my favorite. It's hard sometimes because I've really grown to appreciate the earlier ones, but this one might be my favorite. Alright, so moving on to part 8. This is another one that at least I found to be a little bit hard to find on Laserdisc. Love this cover. I have a kind of a love-hate relationship with this movie, and I'll explain why. So yeah, it's just a really cool movie. I like the concept. I don't mind him constantly being at Crystal Lake Camp. I could have gone with all of them with him being at Crystal Lake. It just comes with Friday the 13th. So I never minded that at all. But it was cool to see him put in a different environment like Manhattan. So I really like the concept. Now, a problem a lot of people have with this movie, and I do a little bit too, is like 75% of it takes place on a boat and not Manhattan. I think the reason for that, I believe it was like budget restraints, and they had a lot of scenes planned, like the Empire State Building and Madison Square Gardens and Brooklyn Bridge, and I would have loved to see that, but to be honest, I'm okay with what we got. I'm okay with the boat for the most part. It could have been better, but I'm kind of okay with it. I think it still turned out pretty good, even with the different setting. It's still a pretty traditional Friday the 13th movie, and I really like it. Except my one huge problem with this movie is the teleporting. and so this is another debate, I guess you could say, that Jason fans might give is, can Jason teleport? And I would say no. And if you go to any of the movies before this, 1 through 7, maybe not 1 because he's not really in it, but you don't really ever explicitly see Jason teleporting. You do see a lot of situations where people are running and you're like, oh, Jason's walking, or he's not running very fast. How did Jason get in front of them? That's just a trope of the horror genre. If you go by that logic, pretty much all of these slasher villains can teleport. I'm pretty sure it's happened to Ghostface and Scream. That's a normal dude. So can he teleport? Can Michael Myers teleport? Can all these people teleport? So you could argue that a lot of those scenes are just maybe Jason knows a shortcut, or you don't know exactly how much time's passed, or a lot of things happening off screen. So I think that's just a trope of the genre, these slasher villains getting ahead of people. But part 8, and don't bring up the video game either. That's a power in the video game. That's just a game mechanic. You need that for the game to work right. So that doesn't count. But I can't explain. He blatantly just teleports in part 8. I don't know. I just find it weird and stupid. I know at this point, you could be like, well, he's a walking zombie. That's kind of unrealistic. It's not about that. It's about suspension of disbelief, I guess. I can buy him being like a zombie back to life, but when you give him powers like teleportation, it's like, well, you may as well give him flight and phasing through walls and laser beam eyes. I mean, it's just goofy. You can explain it away in a couple parts. At the beginning, where the girl's on the boat and she goes into a dance hall and she looks and Jason's at every door she looks at, and then he kind of appears in front of her. You could explain that away as maybe a movie technique of showing her panic, and I believe she was still under the influence of drugs like cocaine at the time, so maybe that you could say oh, that's just a filming technique to bring across her disorientation because she's so freaked out and panicked. And then there's another scene later where guy's going up this part on the ship and Jason's just standing at the bottom, and all of a sudden Jason's right behind him. Again, you might be able to write that off as a trope of the genre, but then there's a scene later where the guy, he's the teacher that's kind of a villain, he's kind of an ass, and Jason's behind him and he runs into this building, and then all of a sudden he gets thrown out from the second story and Jason's up there, and I can't explain that one. I can't write that one off as a trope of the genre. Jason teleported. I hate it. That is what kind of ruins this movie for me. That the teleporting Jason thing. I think it's just stupid and out of place and awkward. And the movie didn't need that at all. But other than that, I actually like this movie, even though it doesn't completely take place in New York. Would have liked to see more of New York, but that's okay. It also has one of my favorite scenes, and that is Jason. I don't think it's on the back. I think the Jason look in this movie is pretty good too. He's not as like deteriorated as in Part 7, but he's kind of like slime Jason. He's real slimy, and it's okay. I think it works. He's been at the bottom of the lake. Oh yeah, that was something about 7. The one thing about 7 that I do hate is that ending, like where her dad comes out of the water and grabs Jason, and he basically looks like he's supposed to have been under there for years, which is funny. They never found his body in the lake. They never drudged, recovered his body. But it looks like he's been down there for like an hour. It looks like he just took a brisk swim or something. It's so weird. They should have had him all like skeletal and messed up, but I think there's a backstory to that. But anyways, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, this movie. One of my favorite scenes is the whole New York scene when he just comes out and he's in Times Square. And he like looks back and forth like, where am I? It's just a funny moment with Jason. And then the kids with the boombox. It's so 80s and cool. And he kicks over their boombox and they're all like, hey man. And all he does is lift his mask up and they're like, it's cool. I don't know. It's one of my favorite scenes from the movie. I do like this movie, but the teleporting I have a major problem with. And then finally we're going to end this video with, you might expect this by now, but I hate this movie. This is Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. In my opinion, this isn't even really much of a Jason movie. Jason's only in it maybe like 15 minutes. You could change this movie to Body Swapping Man and it would be fine, and maybe change Jason, the parts that he does appear, to some hulking guy with a bunny mask or something, and it would work. It adds a lot of weird supernatural elements. Jason teleporting in this one would have made sense, because it's just so not like the other Jasons, and maybe that's what they were going for, but I do not like it. It's not really a Friday the 13th movie to me. It's just some dude swapping bodies. There are a couple things I do like about it. I do like the Jason. When Jason is actually in this movie, I really like how he looks. It's weird. I used to call him like swollen head Jason. It's like his mask barely fits on him anymore. But this is a direct continuation of Part 8. So like when he dies at the end with toxic, like sewer toxic chemicals, maybe it like swelled his head up, and it makes sense. I like Jason in this movie. I like the first 15 minutes. I like the whole setup with the FBI. It makes sense. You've got this killer that keeps popping up and killing people at Crystal Lake, and police officers and stuff. Yeah, the FBI is gonna get involved eventually and set up some kind of sting. Now, they must have knew he was undead because they brought a hell of a lot of firepower with them. That would have been cool. I hear there's like a comic or something that fills in the gap between Part 8 and 9, and I don't know the name of it, and I've never been able to find it. If someone knows, let me know, because I would love to read that. Kind of like the story of him coming back to Crystal Lake from New York and the FBI setting things up. I think that would be cool. But I do like that first 15 minutes, but I think that's where it ends. That's where it ends for me. The series officially ends for me after like the first 15 minutes or so, when the FBI turns on the lights. That's another cool scene I really like. And they just start shooting Jason with, machine guns and stuff, and then they blow him up. And, his body parts are laying, his heart is beating on the ground. And it does one last beat. And then the title comes up, Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. I'll just turn off the Laserdisc there. It's done. The series is over. They blew him up, and it's done. So, other than that first 15 minutes, I do not care for this movie at all. Maybe that's a little stereotypical of fans, because a lot of fans don't like this. Some do for whatever reason. There are some cool little references in it, like the Necronomicon, and the one guy, the director of this movie, said like, oh yeah, Jason's a Deadite. I don't know, he directed this movie, so I can't take anything he says seriously. Or as canon. I do like the end of it. The dagger thing, again, it's a little supernatural. It's a little hokey and stupid. And like, but I do like how, how he gets pulled down to hell, and the Freddy glove at the end. I don't have a problem with that at all. I think the character of Duke the Bounty Hunter, again, is kind of cool. That should have been developed a little bit more. There's a lot of weird scenes in this movie, but where the guy wants information from Duke and the price is breaking fingers. Like, what's with that? Does he just get like extreme satisfaction from breaking people's fingers? So that's the price. Like, hey buddy, do you know where the library is in town? Well, let me break your pinky finger and I'll tell you. It's weird. But I do not like this movie. First 15 minutes, last 10 minutes, and the Jason himself when he is in this movie, I like. Other than that, this movie can go to hell. So, yeah, that's it. That's my Friday the 13th on Laserdisc collection. And it took me a while to find all those movies at a decent price. I'm really happy. Actually, just this month, like last week, I got this one in, completed it. Yeah, I saved the worst for last. So, I'm happy to get them. Probably work on another slasher series, maybe Nightmare on Elm Street, or probably Halloween next. Like I said, they're all available on DVD and Blu-ray, and they're probably, technically they're obviously superior in Blu-ray format, but there's just something about the laser discs. Obviously, that's why I collect laser discs that I really love, especially that cover art. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. I don't think I rambled too much. Let me know, what do you think of the Friday the 13th series? Do you disagree with me? I'm sure you do about Jason not being dead in the early ones. That's such a hot topic in Friday the 13th lore. What do you think about his teleporting in Part 8? What's your favorite Friday the 13th? What Friday the 13th movie did you hate the most? What do you think about movies on Laserdisc? Just talk about Laserdiscs. Yeah, just let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Hit the like button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. And happy Halloween.